up, everyone? I'm Jeff London. This is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, where we are intolerant to weak-minded attitudes that keep people from pursuing new and exciting things in the areas of fitness, outdoors, and general lifestyle. Talking with Brad Schumaker today. He's the Developed Recreation Manager for the Ketchikan Misty Fjords Ranger District of the Forest Service. Going to talk about the Forest Service cabins. Love to use them. I used them ever since I was a kid, growing up with the family. We're going to talk funding and what are some challenges that the Forest Service has with regards to meeting, maintaining, building, chopping firewood for the cabins in the Ketchikan area. That is all coming up here in episode 42 of the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. Make sure you go to themediocrealaskan.com. Check out content there. And here we go with Brad. So Brad, as recreation manager for the Ketchikan area, what exactly does that entail? What are you responsible for?
Yeah, so I call myself, or we call me, the Developed Recreation Manager, which I find it's a more abbreviated than what I really kind of am, which is I manage the cabins, trails, and campgrounds and day use developed recreation sites for the Ketchikan Misty Fjords Ranger District. So, like I said, it's a better than that long mouthful there. But those are the areas I am responsible for managing. And our Ranger District covers the entire Revillagigedo Island, Cleveland Peninsula to the north. There's I forget the divide up there, which is Wrangell north of that, and then all of Misty Fjords Wilderness and Monument, and then all the way out to Hyder. We have a bear viewing site, although that's managed by my coworker Eric. So kind of within that, we're responsible for managing our recreation infrastructure, so making sure we're taking care of our trails, getting them cleared and maintained when we can. Our campgrounds are open and running when they're supposed to be. Our rental cabins are maintained to our standards, make sure they have the firewood and all that. And then with recreation, we're kind of the catch-all in the Forest Service. So kind of anything that's not in a lot of other departments, a lot of times falls to us. So kind of where people play is where recreation is going to be, have a hand, even if it's dispersed. So, and kind of with our staffing right now, I'm kind of, even though my official title is Developed Recreation Manager, I'm kind of like the recreation manager for the district. So kind of responsible for looking out for everything. So, yeah.
How many cabins are you talking about there? And do you have like an estimate about square miles or miles of trails?
Yeah, so we have 25 cabins, 24, 25 right in there. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm kind of blanking on the exact number there, but it's right in 24, 25. We have 117 miles of trail, which is a lot lower than you'd find, let's say, in the lower 48, just kind of the nature of being a maritime forest, so to speak. It's a lot of shorter trails versus, the long runs you'd find in the interior or down south. And then we have 2 campgrounds on our district that are developed. Any sort of dispersed recreation where people are kind of free to go out and recreate where they please and camp. If we know where those are, we'll check them, especially in the wilderness, although that's more our wilderness manager ranger. Aubrey takes care of that. And then we have the Ward Lake Day Use Area in recreation, which we oversee. And then, like I said, we have 2 bear viewing sites, Margaret Creek bear viewing site, which is maintained and staffed by our wonderful volunteers, Chuck and Betty, in the summer. And then Fish Creek bear viewing site over in Hyder, which is managed by Eric and his crew in the summer as well.
You mentioned that there's fewer trails up here, but is it more cumbersome or more difficult to keep the trails up to date? Because, like you said, it's a maritime system. So what are some of the difficulties in having to take a boat out there to then manage the trails rather than just have, motorized, however they do it in Southeast? What are some of the problems in Southeast that are unique to this area?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The boating part of it, it's, that's the big issue. I worked in Montana with the Forest Service for a long time before I took this job up here. And, with a lot of places, in the Forest Service or any other land management agency, really, it kind of comes down to you can take somebody, train them up, and then it doesn't take more to, if they have a driver's license, doesn't take more than an afternoon or a day to put them through our driver training and give them a check ride. And then, at that point, if all other training's completed, you kind of just give them a map and be like, all right, if you know your job, go to your trail and then report back at the end of the week. And here on the Tongass National Forest, it's much different with boating, because boating, it's a much more, I think, intensive activity. I've been told getting a boating certification with the Tongass is actually one of the harder, if not one of the hardest certifications to get in the Forest Service. And I think the average to certify a boater up here takes about 3 years. You could do it, like I've been here a little over a year and I still haven't checked all my boxes. So they're very meticulous about making sure that people are savvy with, boating in a saltwater and marine environment. So that's the big challenge. You have a bottleneck right there, making sure you have a staff that are able to get out into the field. And then, like I said, it's just getting out in there, and then of course you throw in weather and tides, and what would be maybe an hour or two truck ride down in the lower 48 or up in the interior in the summertime might be it's an hour or two boat ride, but you've got to time your tides and make sure you're getting out there. And so yeah, it certainly is a challenge. It's difficult, especially nationwide too. The Forest Service has really leaned heavily on utilizing volunteers and partners, like various conservation corps and volunteer groups. And so it just kind of the logistics up here add that extra dimension of difficulty that doesn't always exist elsewhere. So,
yeah. Do you find that there's some issues that because is it kind of a blanket thing for all Forest Service because it's a federal thing? Are there certain things that might not necessarily apply so much, or that make it a little bit more difficult to manage in Alaska because Alaska is so unique?
Yeah, so a little background. The Forest Service, for those who don't know, is broken up into 9 regions, if I remember correctly. And Forest Service is Region 10, which is weird. And the reason there's 10 more or one more number is because there are a couple regions down south were combined many years ago. So Alaska region is Region 10, which covers Region 10 covers the Tongass and the Chugach up north. So, we kind of, being regionally, we do have things a little bit different. And we are, everyone kind of jokes in the Forest Service that Alaska is a little bit special just because the challenges are so unique up here that, the approach up here is a little bit different. And there are challenges. And, everyone, working down south, everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's Alaska. Then you get up here and you're like, okay, yeah, there's some truth to this. But I don't know, that really kind of answered that question. I don't know if I kind of got to the meat of that one or not.
Well, I think there's any sort of, if there's any blanket sort of things that have to do with all Forest Service that don't really apply to Alaska that make things really difficult. I know, or I've heard that there are some qualifications that you have to have even to volunteer. So if you were to go up there to a cabin and you're just kind of like helping out with the process or cutting firewood or whatnot, that even using like a chainsaw, if you're not qualified or certified to use a chainsaw, you couldn't then volunteer to help out with the trails or to help out cutting firewood. Is that true? Where is that as far as the issues or regulations involving volunteers?
Yeah, so chainsaws they're kind of a unique beast in the Forest Service world. They're their own thing. It is true so far the chainsaws, but that is a nationwide thing. It was 2-3 years ago, maybe a little longer now. They came out with a new national chainsaw policy. And it used to be, it was kind of like Joe Blow could volunteer and like he can go cut firewood. Okay, great, cool. And then they changed the policy on chainsaws to where you have to be trained either through the Forest Service training and certification process or an equivalent one, which with that equivalent one, that was more with there's a lot of conservation corps that work with us as partner organizations and other organizations that, for a lot of times had their own chainsaw training that was internal to them. And the Forest Service wanted to make sure that, everyone was meeting that same standard of saw training. So, yeah, it makes it a little bit tricky for us because not just in Alaska, but elsewhere where, if somebody does want to go out and volunteer and run a chainsaw, we would have to put them through our training, which, it's not Too Terrible is a 3-day course, which is, just, it's a matter of somebody would be willing to put in that time and go through it. And then you do a 3-day course, and then you go out, you do your hands-on, your practical exam, you buck up or you fell a tree or whatever it is you need to do. And then you get scored, and then you get a certification. And there's different certifications, from trainee all the way up to expert sawyer. So, and then beyond that, it just kind of depends. There's not a lot of super specific trainings. There's some things that we may hesitate to do just for safety. And if I want to be nice, where I won't make somebody clean an outhouse if they don't want to. But yeah, it is, we are the federal government, and we are, very keen on safety for, very good reasons. And so it's just, makes it a little bit trickier. A volunteer, they could be brought up to speed and do a lot of good work for us, but we want to make sure that they're properly trained and know to be safe while they're volunteering for us. So, yeah.
Do you have like events in which you try to get volunteers to help out with, maybe we're going to get together and kind of help out this trail? So you help the full-time employees or the employees for, this is the Naha River trail cleanup, or this is the Mahoney trail. Do you have any of those events go on? Do you advertise that much, or are you just always kind of looking?
We don't have any events scheduled for a couple reasons. One, my trails foreman position's vacant, so we're just really short-staffed and at the current moment, and so trying to schedule a major event like that is, I think it's a bit more than we could handle at the moment, because there would be quite a bit of effort involved. I would love to do it, and and another reason it would be nice if we don't have one in town here in Ketchikan, would be like a Friends of organization or a foundation. In places down south, a big, a popular day, to do events like this would be like National Trails Day or Public Lands Day, where I know districts down south work with partner foundations, and they do have those events where the Forest Service goes out and everyone partners up and they do go do a trail maintenance day. So I'd love to make it happen. I think I need a little bit more capacity on our end to execute something like that. But yeah, it's definitely something I am open to. But for right now, I know there's been, I think a little while ago, our district ranger Sue Howell and our public affairs officer Paul Robbins, maybe, I didn't listen to it, that they did an interview at KBRD at the radio station. And so we've had a few people call and express interest, and we've kind of have a couple individual volunteers. We had one gentleman, I forget his name, but he was out this week with our cabins guy, Andrew, and helped stock some firewood. So, we've had people come in the door and we sit down with them and chat and see what they're able and willing to do, and kind of make some magic happen.
What are some of the biggest issues with the cabins that you have? Because some of them were built in the 60s, right? So what are some of the issues that you've had, and are some closed down? Are there new ones coming out? Where's the cabin news?
Okay, so you cut out there before, so I think the whole question is just about the cabins.
Yeah. Okay. New ones that are opening, old ones that are closing, maintenance.
Yeah, so the cabins they're a bit of a hot topic for us right now. I can say I'm not really privy too much because it's happening at the leadership level, so above my pay grade, but there is a forest-wide cabin strategy committee and effort going on right now to kind of just figure out what the heck we want to do with our cabins, because they were built in a different time, and I think when people use them differently than I think visitors recreate now. So that's ongoing. I know that there's, depending on where you are in Southeast Alaska, your local ranger district should be having or just had, open houses and public meetings. So that's something, folks should look into. But basically, I don't want to say, I think as far as I know, just about everything is on the table and what we need, what we're looking at. And so with our cabins, they were built 50, 60 years ago when, the timber industry, when it was heyday, everyone had money in their pocket and airplanes were pretty cheap, and that's kind of not really the case anymore, where flying out to many of our remote cabins, while spectacular, it's expensive. it could be $600-700 an hour to fly in a beaver out to, these cabins. So that adds up really quick. And so folks just aren't getting out and utilizing them like they used to. And then, then there's our allocated dollars that we have. Our budgets have been declining in recreation for many years, and that's a many-headed hydra on that reason. But, we were making do.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
So at the cabins we do have, we're increasingly, we need the fee, we're relying more and more on the fee dollars to kind of keep us afloat. So in terms of new cabins, I don't have any plans or know of any plans right now. We also, I don't know of any plans to decommission any right now. There's nothing like that in the works that I know of. But suspect that's the case across the forest, pending, this cabin strategy coming out in the months ahead. But, some things we are looking at are, maybe we're possibly decommissioned. And like I said, none of this is guaranteed. I don't know. But, we are looking at the fact that road-based recreation is kind of where it's at. People are really, they want to be able to drive to a cabin or a recreation site. They don't necessarily want a boat or can't afford to boat or fly. So maybe that's something where we pivot cabins towards maybe having more on the road system and then less in the field, or maybe we get a couple on a road system to help subsidize other ones out there. I really don't know. Maybe even friends of groups that kind of adopt and help us keep afloat on them, because it's time consuming and it's expensive to maintain them. And, we're trying to stay afloat, and it's a struggle. But like I said, it's upcoming. I don't know the answer. I don't know what the final form is going to be. But certainly if people are interested in the cabins, and have an opinion on them, now is the time to certainly reach out to us and let your thoughts and voices be heard on it. So.
What are some of the most popular ones in the Ketchikan area?
Fish Creek cabin out there. It's certainly, that is by far our most popular. I think it's because it's pretty close to town, and then excellent fishing right there. And then it really kind of follows. It's kind of a radius. Like the Helm Bay cabins out there are pretty popular for fly-in ones or walk-in ones, like the Jordan Heckman ones are popular because it's a short plane ride if you want to go that way, or you like Jordan and Heckman you can hike into from Naha there. And then Reflection McDonald, for the diehard fishermen up north there, that's pretty popular. And then certainly the Misty cabins, the interior lake ones are get utilized the least, just because they are so remote and difficult to access now. But basically it's kind of like the closer into town you are, the more popular they're going to be.
Do you see that the use of the more remote ones is specific to maybe hunters? Or do you see, or do you even know, do they happen to correlate with hunting seasons, or?
Yeah, some do. Like Misty, I don't know. I would have to I don't know if the survey data captures that. I'd have to maybe dig into that data. I know like Helm certainly is popular. Some of those over there, especially on the mainland where, there's a brown bear population. Those certainly get use with hunters. Yeah, they all do. Yeah, hunters certainly use them. And then just a lot of folks in general recreating. I know a lot of the ones around the beam, Winstanley Island, Anchor Blind Pass, those get a lot of use from kayakers. They're doing like a island circumnavigation. So, yeah.
What's yeah, I don't know if you could put a percentage on it, but some of the more popular ones, is it rented 40% of the year, 60% of the year? Like what's one of these cabins, the usage rate out of the year?
Yeah, so our most popular one, Fish Creek cabin, the last 5-year average I saw, which I think was like 2011 or 2012 to 16. I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but that one was about, I think it averaged 35% occupancy. And if I kind of strip out like the winter months when no one really goes there, and I kind of make like a busy season, which is kind of like May to like September, I think it goes up to around 50-something% occupancy, kind of when people are out and about. Our least used one is Chicats, which I think has a 5-year average of about 4% occupancy. Now, I need to point out too that we track that through, so all of our cabins are reserved through recreation.gov. So that's where we're getting our use numbers. Now, what I don't have are folks that are using them and not necessarily paying for them. They're occupying them and perhaps partaking of them, but they're not in the system and we know people use them. They kind of poach them. But like I said, I don't know what those numbers would be because we don't really have a mechanism to track them.
Yeah. The nice thing about having them out there is if you do know that one is out there and you don't plan on being there, but you do need it in case of emergency, that certainly is a nice thing to have out there as a
for sure. And that's how they were originally conceived, was that survival component to them was folks that do find themselves kind of caught out there, they have a place to go.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, what about local versus non-local? Do you have numbers about, is it mostly local? Is it summer visitors, or can you track those?
I would have to follow up on that one. I think, like I said, with the data and seeing, like I know our John Swamala is our data steward, and he's a whiz with the numbers. I don't have him in front of me, but I could follow up. But it's a healthy mix. I think certainly it would be overwhelmingly be local use, but we do, I get folks calling, be like, hey, we're coming up from Seattle or Denver or whatever. And they're coming up and they're staying in our cabins because they want that, they want that really that Alaska experience. So folks come from all over too, or they have that once in a lifetime brown bear hunt. And they're staying in our cabin. But I would say for the most part, it's locals.
Mm-hmm. How many of the cabins have you been to stay out without work, just for fun on your own terms?
None so far. Like I said, I've moved up here. I've been on the job a little over a year. So I just haven't really had a chance to really get out and recreate at the cabin for non-work. I'd like to. It's certainly, like when I worked and lived in Montana, we had a number of rental cabins near where I lived, and, I used them regularly and they were popular and I loved going to them. So they're a great resource, public cabins and public lands, and I encourage everybody to use them and check them out. And I think they're, a treasure, all across our country. So,
what are some of the biggest changes you've seen between Montana and Alaska? Obviously, it's just epic wilderness, but it's pretty different. What are some of the things you've noticed that have been different?
So obviously from a work standpoint, the logistics are a whole nother level that I knew was going to be tough, but it's like, when I actually start looking at the numbers and what it's involved, you're like, holy smokes. So that was a big difference. I think the other big thing that, it's really, for me personally, I've noticed is, I think Alaska, through no fault of its own, just by virtue of being so far north and removed from the rest of the country, it's there's a bit of a lag, I think, in kind of public perception on the Forest Service and what's going on. And I think I personally kind of chalk it up to we're in a rainforest, so we don't catch fire. Really the big fires, and anymore in down south in the West, it seems like anymore in the summer, if you're out there, you're basically living in the middle of a campfire if you get a good fire season going. And up here, you don't get that. And I think, that's one big source of, the budget issue for the Forest Service is, our budget's almost literally going up in flames, as we're fighting bigger and bigger wildfires. And I think, if you live down south or you live in the West and people see that fire and they see what it takes to really go fight them, they kind of see, okay, where the budget's at. But up here, I think it's a little bit separated from that because we don't see those fires. And so, trying to explain to people, 60% of the Forest Service budget, it's firefighting now. So that's kind of where those dollars are going. And so I think there's just that little bit of lag and kind of realizing that, what's going on down south is really kind of driving what's going on up here. And so it's a little bit, kind of frustrating, kind of like, I would love to do some of this stuff, but, we can't, but I think people are slowly coming around, they're getting it and it's happening. So.
Well, how'd you get to Ketchikan? And do you like it here?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I was a long time seasonal. I spent over a decade in Montana, just kind of grunting out. I liked doing what I did, and but I just was like, yeah, I was kind of ready for a change after a decade there, and I just kind of did like the old shotgun approach to applying for a job, and I got a call, I got an interview, and they said, hey, you want to come work for us up here? And I said, yeah, and hopped on a ferry and came up here, and like I said, it was just. It was basically, a promotion and a change of scenery and a new pace. And yeah, I like it up here. Like I said, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so it's still kind of close for me. I can hop on a plane and head south and see the family. But yeah, it's a good town, good little place. So,
well, is there a particular cabin that you're looking at going to when you do get a little bit of time to enjoy it for yourself?
I definitely want to get up like Reflection or McDonald up north. I want to check those ones out. And then ultimately, as the manager, I'd like to be able to see every single one of them. It's just kind of finding the time and the window to actually kind of get out there and visit them, which hopefully I'll get a chance to knock a lot of them out. We've got, we have a new contractor behind the scenes for recreation.gov, who's taking over, managing it. So part of what we're doing is updating kind of all of our data, making sure everything's new and pretty on the back end as well as the front end. But so we're going to be going out to a lot of these cabins and, new pictures, new coordinates and, to put into the new system. So hopefully I can knock out a big chunk of, checking them all out. So.
What would you recommend for people who are going to stay out there? What are the things they need to really keep in mind? I know they say don't leave your leftover food, but there's always a couple people who leave, extra supplies they don't want to pack out.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you would recommend as far as if you just remember these one or two things, it'd be the most helpful for people who are using the cabins?
Yeah, I think one thing would be, like I said, is, a couple things would be one, with the budgets being the way they are, we really are relying on fee dollars to make, kind of keep the program going. What people pay in when they rent these cabins are really a crucial funds for us to help maintain them. And I understand, the prices have gone up and they're more expensive than they used to be. But every time someone goes out and uses one and they don't pay, that's, an extra, set amount of firewood that we have to stock that, we didn't get, funding for. So, that's something that, they're almost kind of getting to the point where, they're, fee dollars are where it's at for us. As much as we don't want to be there, we almost are. So kind of with that, just be mindful of the fact that with our decreased budgets, right now I have one guy, Andrew, to manage 24, 25 cabins. And, for him, cutting firewood in a lot of these places is not easy. It could take him a week, with him and maybe one other person to fill up a woodshed. So we just ask folks to be mindful of the fact that, we're not the old, 20 years ago, there were 20 guys in the Forest Service rec department who could knock all this out. Now there's 2 of us right now, 3 of us. So, he's going to have, and we're going to have, once a year, we're going to get to these cabins. do what we need to do, stock the woodshed, do any maintenance, and then that's going to be it until the next summer. So just let people, folks should be mindful of, the wood we put out there. It's got to last, especially at the popular cabins. So, we ask folks, stove only. If you want a bonfire, go out and collect some firewood elsewhere. And then the other thing too is, lots of folks are out there. There really are eyes and ears. So if you go out and you have an experience, give us a call at the ranger station, 907-225-2148. Be like, hey, I was out at, such and such cabin Reflection or, wherever. And there was half a woodshed left, or I saw this maintenance issue, and just let us know, because, you'll that way that's something that, we can plan for, in our coming year's work schedule, that we wouldn't have known otherwise. So.
Good. In the Jordan Lake one, that says that there's a little placard that says it's maintained in conjunction with Ketchikan High School. Is that still going on, or
no,
expired?
It's kind of expired. Yeah, it'd be nice if they were around, but I think that's kind of, people and times have changed with turnover, and it's kind of one of many things that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Gotcha. Well, great, man. I really appreciate you spending some time here out of your evening and talking. Is there anything that you want to close with or add on to or mention in closing?
Like I said, I kind of mentioned it was, certainly give us a call and let us know what's going on out there that you see at our, the Ketchikan Ranger Station. You can either let, the front desk know, or they could put folks back through to me. And like I said, as we, this is late May 2018, there is the Forest Wide Cabins initiative going on. So folks on their respective ranger districts in the Tongass certainly reach out. I think the Tongass Facebook page might have some information that Paul put up there. But certainly let your thoughts be known on what you'd like to see in the future. And just let it be known. Now is certainly the time, because we are looking at, just what the heck to do with our cabins and what, I don't know what the plan's going to be. It hasn't been unveiled yet, but it's in the works as we speak.
Great. Well, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, appreciate it too. Thanks for having me on.
That will do it for this episode. Make sure you go to themediocrealaskan.com for content and all things Alaska. We will talk to you next time.